Your name.
My name?
Yeah.
I'm Henry Peska.
Where were you born, Henry?
Born in Poland.
The city.
Chichanov.
Chicanov, Poland. And the year you were born?
You talk or I talk?
Both.
Okay.
We're recording. It's coming along good. It's coming up good.
What year were you born?
What year? 19. What the heck was this already? Was it 29 or 19? I forgot already.
I think it was 1919.
19?
Yes, say 1919.
No, I don't even know. Ask me.
Okay.
July 29th.
But why do I have to do all that bullshit?
Okay.
I like that. Ernie.
Well, a little bit about your family and the town.
I don't have to tell you. You see everything here. So you can say what you like to do about it.
Yeah.
They're down here. I have a son, and I have a daughter, and my granddaughter is here. Was she here or she left?
She's here.
Oh, she's here.
That's
and I have my good friend here, Bob Julian, and Dorothy is here. She's here down there for a long time, And
He wanted to know about your family growing up.
my family growing up.
Yeah, your
Before
mom.
the war. Before the war.
Well, my family growing up.
Yeah.
Who do I have?
You had your parents, right?
My parents?
Yeah, your mom and dad.
I don't have any
No,
parents.
but when you were born, the family that you were born into, you had a mom, right?
Well,
And a dad, and you had 2 sisters and a brother, right?
2 sisters.
Mm-hmm. And a brother.
Did I have 2 sisters?
And a brother.
Uh-huh.
And actually, my name is Linda, but I was named after his youngest sister, whose Hebrew name was Leah, and that's my Hebrew name.
Oh, that's my wife's name.
Mm-hmm.
And my name is Steve, but as I understand it, I was named after his father, who I believe his name, the English version of it would be Saul, but there was a Yiddish name as well that I can't recall
Saul.
right now. Can
Peska.
you remember, Linda? It was
No,
a different
it wasn't
name.
Shlomo.
No, it was like
Selleck.
or something like that.
Oh.
Zadok.
Selleck, wasn't it?
Selleck or something.
Yeah, it was
like
Selleck, because I remember that was one of the things Shirley talked about.
Right. So I was named. So we
Selig.
were both named
S-E-L-I-G.
after family members from Henry's life.
Were there many Jews in the town that he grew up in?
It's hard to tell from what we've heard, but I know at this point there are none. Well, I shouldn't say none. Probably not any. I did go back there in 2005. And the name of the city is Chicanov. I'm probably slaughtering that.
No, I think
That
it's Chicanoff. I think you're right.
Ciechanov is the spelling of the city. We went there in 2005, my 2 daughters and I, and we toured around there. In fact, I do have some pictures. But there were very few people out. It was a Sunday, and I did not get the feeling that there was much of a Jewish history still left there.
Okay.
Right.
How about Henry's or your dad's father occupation?
As I understand it, he was a land developer. He built modern office buildings, and they had a whole block in Chicanoff where there was a hotel. They owned a store.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that they were quite successful. The other part of it that's quite interesting, and again, this was related to me by my father, but also by some relatives that he had here in the United States, Gene and Shirley Schwimmer, that Henry's father, Saul, or Selig, was actually an American citizen. He had been here a number of times in the 1920s and 1930s, and that prior to the German invasion in 1939, that efforts were made through the American consulate to have the family come to the United States. but that decision did not happen, or that was not the decision that occurred, and consequently, they were in Poland at the time of the Nazi invasion in September of 1939, and Henry is the only one who lived through that experience.
I actually have in here, although it would be hard for you to photograph, Bob, the block of where he was born. I don't know if that is something you want to take pictures of.
Well,
or
if you have it, you can hold it up and I'll see if I can
Okay. Okay.
You have the
this
block where
this
he was
is
born?
the block
I don't
of
think
where
I've
he
ever
was
seen
born.
that. Let me see that when you're
Well, you
done.
can hold it back further. Let's see. Let me just leave it right where you have it.
Okay.
You don't
I got
know?
it. I got it.
Is that what it looked? Lynn, can I see that?
yeah.
Is that what it looked like at that time?
No.
No.
Because-
So
But what? Well,
No,
either
that's
way,
a big
historically,
building.
that's what it was.
We had that in the back.
And you can actually see the addresses in here.
I don't know.
okay.
Hold it. Don't move it.
Okay.
Here you go, Lee.
1 minute.
Okay. Got that one.
Yeah. Cool.
How about family? Brothers, sisters, extended family?
Okay. Would you like to tell us about your brother and sisters, or mention anything about it?
If I have any brothers or sisters,
Yeah. Would you like to talk about your memories of having a brother and sisters, or not?
I don't know.
Okay.
Can you tell you?
I know he had a dog.
Yeah, the dog had to be put to sleep because the dog bit a mailman. I do know that because he's mentioned that many, many times, how bad he felt about the dog because he very much loved the dog. It's kind of a sad story because he went to college there. They were very successful people. Life was pretty good for them. And then this horrible thing happened.
I don't know if you want
To
to
their
zoom in on
family.
that
Yeah.
or not.
I was going to college. That's right.
Right. And he
Yeah.
studied very
Hold it.
hard. He
Wait a
told me
minute.
that
I'm
when he
holding
was
it.
in college.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
He had a good memory. He always talks about the memory because he says that he has a good memory, that I have a good memory, and that my son has a good memory. Remember, we always say that about our memory.
And I was going through with two languages, English and German, in
Right.
college.
He had two language, English and German. He studied.
English
Right.
and German.
And of course he spoke Polish.
Probably Yiddish too.
Three languages.
Probably four because he probably spoke Yiddish.
Yiddish.
4 languages.
That's,
Right.
Okay.
He did speak.
What about the
Polish.
dangers you felt there? Some of the dangers when Hitler moved in.
oh, don't ask about that. You know, that guy, they didn't ask no time. Who are you? Well, shoot him. You know.
No,
They didn't,
no questions asked.
Yeah, they didn't ask you why you was hurt, you know, and ask you what you do. I tell them because when my dad came back, we built buildings, the whole business, and I tell them, I am a what did I say?
Painter?
Painter. That's right. You know, I was down there, and all the other guys being students in college and others, they threw them right in ovens.
Wow.
Me, they needed me as a painter. So that's saved my life
Saved your life.
as a painter because I watched people working in other places. I said, well, I can paint.
Somebody's
You know.
here, Stephanie.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so that's what you did from like 1939?
from 1939 and up, oh, well, then I got down there, went in and I worked in a store at Bergman Auto Supply, and they were some kind of, her mother or something, but my
What's that?
my mother and the Bergman Auto Supply
Yeah.
were sisters, you know.
You're talking about Helen Wiseman
Yes.
and Sam Wiseman?
So they gave me a job, you know, down there.
That partially accurate.
Well, actually,
He came to Grand Rapids because his father's friend, whose name was Sam Wiseman, was living in Grand Rapids, and my father remembered Sam Wiseman's address from when he used to mail letters to him.
Grand Rapids Auto Parts.
Right, and he had been living for a short time. His sponsorship when he came to the United States, he had one uncle and only one uncle who survived the Holocaust, and his family was rooted in the New York, New Jersey area.
you're talking about David Peska?
Yeah, and he went and he was sponsored by his uncle and their family, which was a wonderful thing because it was difficult to come over, and they sponsored him after the war. But he did not really like New York City, and he remembered that there was this man by the name of Sam Wiseman who had been a friend but not family.
Grand Rapids Auto Parts.
That lived here, and he contacted him, and he said that he could help him find a job or would give him a job, as it turned out. And
Actually, that's the funny thing.
It wasn't like that.
Sam didn't give him the job. There was this other guy.
Who?
Sam arranged for him to have a job. It was a gas station.
Oh, I remember.
And it was at the corner of Michigan
Yeah, right.
and
Monroe.
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 And what they
That's
did,
right.
what Henry hated so much, is he had to go work on these cars in a pit. Did he ever tell you this? So there was no
Yeah.
covering.
Right.
So finally he was so upset that he wanted to leave and go back to New York, and that's when he got a hold of Goldie Bergman. He just went over there for dinner. My
That's right.
grandmother invited people over for dinner, especially if they were newcomers. There was a very close-knit Jewish community in those days. It was mostly on the lower west side and lower northeast side. And Goldie invited him to come over for dinner, and when she heard the story, she insisted that he stay. In fact, took him to a very fancy, at the time, men's clothing store called Martin's that was on Leonard, and bought Henry some suits and sport coats, the finest things. And then ultimately he wound up marrying Goldie's daughter, Beatrice, who, of course, was Linda's mother and my mother. They operated a family business called Bergman Auto Supply, and Henry then was employed there. Now, there's a very funny story about that. My mother.
Yes, Sam's wife, Helen, and my grandmother, Goldie, were sisters.
Right, but
So that's how there was a connection. So he ended up marrying, into the family
Goldie's daughter.
after he was brought here. Yeah.
But my mother would go to different gas stations and sell auto parts. And the guy who she drove with was this guy named Joe. And Joe liked my mother. But because back in those days he wasn't, Jewish, that was not an acceptable situation. So apparently Henry didn't like that so that he started driving with her. And he drove so fast wherever they went that my mother gave him a nickname, which was Speedy. That he drove so fast that he was speedy, but even many years later, because of all their trips on the road, they could point out different restaurants, like in Plainwell and these different places. Remember the Red Brick Inn? You'd say that this place had great food because what they would do is they would drive all around West Michigan. This was back, in a different day of business, and sell these auto parts to
Directly
independent.
to the gas stations,
Right.
They called them filling stations then.
Yeah.
So she actually peddled auto parts. She was a pioneer because women, really, that was not a job that women even knew much about. But she went with a driver because it was the family's business, and she felt that she had, and she did. She had a lot of business sense, and she always wanted to make money. It was very important to her, and she wanted to be successful, and she didn't like to stay home. She was not a domesticated woman. She did not really enjoy cooking and cleaning, and her sisters liked to do that, and she liked to make money and sell auto parts. So that's what she did, and when she married my father, She was actually, for those days, an older woman because women got married at a young age.
Right, she would have been in her
She was probably
33, 34,
She was what you would almost call an old maid.
by those standards.
Well, it's true.
When that wasn't don't make it down there.
And she had never been married before, and she, of course, did not have children. So it was a win-win situation as far as...
Their honeymoon.
Just talk
was
about
in
yourself a little.
Muskegon,
What do you mean?
You can write a
One
book
night
about
in
yourself.
Muskegon. But what happened is that Henry worked very hard, and he had learned from his father about the land development. So he and Herman Bergman, Beatrice's brother, went into partnership as land developers. They mortgaged their houses. They risked everything to buy property. Their first major deal was a grocery store on South Division, and then an Arlen store. And once that happened, they became very successful, and they bought property throughout our area and developed shopping centers, office buildings, apartment complexes, light industrial, retail. And Henry became very, very
A
prominent. A restaurant as well, as a developer, and was very, very successful. So it's really quite a remarkable story given what he went through. We haven't touched on all of these things, but you could really probably make a movie about his life, given what's happened.
Wow.
Well, yeah. As
I
well
know
as
a
probably
movie
many
maker that
survivors.
Got the restaurants, the dance floors, a whole business. Music.
What? Restaurant what?
His dance
Dance,
floors.
dance floors.
Yeah, they had a dance
Dancing.
floor.
Dancing with
He was-
the
he was
But
a
he
head
loved to
dancer.
dance. He
Head
and my
dancer.
mother used to go out dancing every single Saturday night. It was so funny. We were just talking about it the other night.
Yeah, but then I built my own.
Right. Well, he was never much of a drinker. So he would order one bottle of beer, one glass of beer. And my mother would have a glass of water. And that was, but they did eat dinner at the place
They
before.
did eat dinner,
But
thank goodness, before that.
He was never a drinker. I mean, to speak of.
Linda, can you move over a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we're going. Are we bringing it right up to date? This little
Up to
story.
date. Okay.
Henry's story. It's pretty much right up to date.
Wow.
I guess
Why
I
don't you-
wanted to hear a little bit more about.
When you get through with that, you're going to have a book, a whole book.
Linda, why don't you talk about how he built the synagogue and that kind of thing?
Oh, that's
The
it.
synagogue, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
don't know if I know too much
When I-
about it, but I can try to
Like-
remember
Okay.
some things. We'll see if you won't like it if I speak. But I guess I will anyhow. so I'm
Steve
used to
was,
it.
the synagogue was on what was the
My
street?
bar mitzvah.
44 Lafayette.
Lafayette. And Steve was bar mitzvah, 13 years old. And I looked down there, and I was already from Poland down there, build buildings, so I understood some. And I said, I took Steve down there to the bar mitzvah, to the synagogue. I was on Lafayette. There was no parking spots. There's parking down there for 8 cars. Then I just about.
They didn't have a
and I
parking
said, I got to do something. So I drove around and I found some piece of land on Michigan between the East Belt Line and, what was it?
It's
Plymouth.
between
Plymouth.
like Leffingwell and Plymouth.
Yeah, and I found down there, and I said, I'm going to buy that piece of land. And I bought that piece of land, and I took an option, on it. And
This was after the auto parts.
then
Right,
yeah,
he
this
sort
is
of
in the
moved out of
seven-
that and moved into land
This is in the
development, right?
70s.
Well,
Probably
actually, about
70.
68, 69, they probably started because they
Started their
opened
build.
in
yeah.
71. The summer of 71 is when they moved.
Yeah, I
then
remember.
I
it was right when I was
started down there,
graduating from high school.
and I said, I'm going to build something down there. And I saw the synagogue, and I said, yeah, I like to build a synagogue down there.
Right.
So I started
Eh,
working on it.
And the synagogue was in need of. The synagogue actually was very interesting. In fact, if you do go on a driving tour, you may want to drive him by the old synagogue.
Right.
That works into it because what was interesting about 44 Lafayette is that it originally was a house, a kind of a manor house, a large house. And the city of Grand Rapids, like a fine home of probably some very
Lumber
affluent
baron or
people,
something.
because it was big. And I don't know the history, but the synagogue ended up buying this and made a synagogue.
It wasn't the
around
synagogue, was
the
me.
house.
I did it.
Okay.
You know,
So
the-
when you went into the synagogue, there was a back part that you really weren't supposed to go into that was the house.
But they
she
had
got some of my
classrooms there.
nerves. I
Yeah,
got
but some
enough.
of it was actually
Go
condemned. Some of it was actually condemned. So that was very interesting. After the synagogue left there and the new synagogue was built, they took away the synagogue part, and the original house is now there, as it was,
Wow. Okay.
without the sanctuary and all that.
Well,
I wonder if we could
you're
do-
talking about the synagogue now? We own all that land down there, all the way to the street. So anytime if they want to build some schools or anything, there's enough land for it.
Yeah.
That's on Lafayette, Michigan.
It's on Michigan.
And
We
then
saw the new
close to the
synagogue.
freeway.
Oh,
It was
okay.
and the-
good.
Okay.
We drove around it
Okay.
all the way
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, I
You could
remember
see a lot
that
of
saying.
land around.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Correct. Hmm.
We have a lot of land, but not enough members.
That's true.
What
That
would
is
the
true.
membership be?
Well, I think it's 120 some, but
Families, yeah.
back in its day, there was probably 300.
Or 350.
So it has dwindled. There is a Reformed Temple Emmanuel here, and also this is where we are. It's conservative Congregation of Havas Israel, and as times have changed, so has the shift, where it used to be pretty equal. Now it's very much not. Most of the Jewish population are members of the Reformed Temple.
Well, they're getting older. You know, when
Right.
they
So
die,
things,
the
you know,
new
have
ones.
changed. And hopefully there'll be
So
some
lose members.
good ideas that will help keep it going.
So that brings us up to date, kind of.
Right, can I
Yeah.
share just one
I would
other
love it. Yes.
story
please,
that I
please.
thought was really interesting? About a year after
Please
the
do.
synagogue was built, there was a dinner sort of celebrating the new synagogue. And Henry was honored. I think they gave him a fancy watch
I know,
at that.
they did. I could probably go find, or maybe, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's there.
Abe
And that
Grayson,
watch disappeared.
at that
It
time,
disappeared.
was the mayor of the city of Grand Rapids, and he was a Jewish fellow, and he was also a member of the synagogue. And I remember when before he was the one that presented the award to Henry, the watch honoring him.
I
for
still
this.
got that. yeah.
And I remember he said, as you can tell, especially years back, Henry was not a shy person, and he was one who would always, express his opinion, and he could tell you a lot of stories about how he wanted the synagogue built just the way that he wanted to, and he didn't want a lot of committees involved in all of this. Basically, the way he wanted it was the way he wanted to do it, and ultimately they basically succumbed and did it how he wanted. But I remember Abe Drazen said that Henry Peska was a very independent kind of person. And that really stuck in my mind because just about 30 years later at my sister's house, when I was state representative for Grand Rapids at the time, and Carl Levin was there for a fundraiser. And I remember when he introduced me, he said that I was a very independent kind of person. And that just stuck in my mind that 30 years later, talking about in the same family. So he raised us to think for ourselves and to have strong beliefs about how we felt. And how he always talks about that not giving in. Obviously, our experience isn't like his, but to stand up for what we believe in.
He set a good example.
He did.
He really
I just thought it was
did.
interesting, the exact same language.
Very good.
That's right.
Very good.
To be fair, to be good, and and some of the women say, I built a synagogue. I said I'm going to have some brick, but we have inside, outside.
Right. he didn't want to get all caught up in the red tape of the interior decorating
they
and,
said-
women going back and forth about should it be blue or magenta or light, So he just was like, we need it, I'm going to get it done. And actually that turned out to be a good thing because he was able to progress with it much quicker and still have it done in a beautiful way with decorating and all that, but didn't get caught with people having to go over it and over it.
He was a take charge type guy, I guess you could say, would be the way to
Evidently,
describe it.
he took charge in
I told him that's the way.
architects that were excellent.
Right.
Evidently, the architects said that, evidently they
He would
listened to him.
He would have a vision of how he wanted it, and he could sort of conceptualize what he wanted and figure out a way to get it done.
And it's still 50 years from now, I still going to be here.
Let me
That's
make
the way
one other
that thing
comment
is
about
built,
that. He was talking about the brick.
It'd be more than
Yeah,
50 years.
that's right.
Like 150
You know,
years.
he's right, because even in his office buildings, one of the things that he's done that's really interesting, and there's just a woman, a new tenant that came in last week, said, I love this inside brick. He figured out a way that you could create office, his house, the synagogue, and his office buildings all have this inside brick. So he had the idea that you could make the property sort of timeless by doing that. Its time frame would never become dated. I mean, he was very perceptive in terms of how he constructed things. Now, obviously, no one is infallible, but when you think through 45 years ago that he would come up with this idea, and people today, I mean, how often, if you would have an idea 45 years ago, and people in 2009 say, oh, I really like that. So he had very good perspective.
Do you know who?
Well, his house is basically
all
not
my
been changed
architects
since
were?
1964. I mean, you're looking at the original, except the floor
Also that
and the
wall
window
over there.
treatments. This is the original. The wallpaper in this is from 1964, and it's the same wallpaper.
Someday I will take you through the synagogue if you
Okay.
want to see it.
Of course, I want to see the
That was
outside and
clean.
the inside.
Yeah.
I'd like to do one thing so my son is going to edit this,
Okay.
hopefully, and he'll find some real good parts. But what I would like to do is to tape again your introduction. My name is Henry Peska. I was born, if you have the year, I was born in
1919.
1919.
Yeah.
I was born in 1919 in Poland. And if you could remember, put the name in there.
Okay, so you want to do
That's
that?
good.
He needs
Just-
you to do that.
I would like you to do that. One more time.
Yeah, you can do it. What do I care?
Okay. Okay.
Will you say your
I'm
Will you say
ready.
your name again?
Whenever you're ready.
There's only one thing he can say. I'm an honest guy, a good man, was doing my work down there, what I was supposed to do,
Right.
build my name up,
He wants you to say your name again.
And my name is Henry Peska. Okay?
And tell him where you were born.
When you draw my ear, I'm talking to
Tell
him
where
and
you
she,
were born. Just try.
Yeah, just one more time. My name is Henry Peska. I was born in 1999 in Poland.
Okay.
At least that.
Go ahead.
Right.
Just
Why don't
do
you
that.
say it now? Start right now.
What do I have to say?
Just,
My name is Henry. Yeah, we could write it down.
She blows my ear, so I don't know to whom to talk to.
okay. So just talk
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the camera.
And
The
my-
camera's waiting for
Yeah.
you.
My name is Henry Peska. Okay?
And where
Yeah.
were you
But
born?
more than that, my name is Henry Peska, and I was born in 1999 in
1999 isn't here yet.
1919 in
Yeah.
Poland.
Ted, I got to get out of here.
Okay.
Sure.
And that's it. And he's still here.
Still here.
Okay?
And he will stay here, right?
Yeah. And unless you guys turn everything around, then I will tell you, take that paper and throw them out.
Hey, sit back one
Here.
more time. Sit back.
Yeah.
Stephanie wants you to read this. Here.
What do I need that for?
She wants you to read it and look in the camera all together.
Do every damn thing you want to do. Okay.
All
One
right,
more-
you
one more-
try it.
Anything
You
else?
tell him to do it,
Okay,
Stephen.
Hank, here, hold that. Just
I thought she wants to do it like
It
that.
would really
Do it
help.
like that.
Just the introduction, because he could just cut this and tie it in with all the other interviews.
understand.
If he
Yeah.
just starts it out there.
That's
all you have
to
to
give
do
you
is say
that.
those sentences.
Poland and Poland. Oh God, that's a.
What if we did?
He never really did talk about it. We weren't supposed to talk about it, so I don't have that vivid memories as a
What do I
child
do with that?
of that
All right, I
because
think
we
we
couldn't
kinda
talk
reached
about
You
it.
can
Yeah.
introduce him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. You don't need
This is our father, Henry Peska, who was born in 1919 in Poland.